very excited to have you here. We have myself, so I'm Christina Bianchini. I'm a registered professional counselor, and I specialize in relationships, and that is really helping people to connect to themselves and to each other. And we have the wonderful Susan Flueck here, who's a healing practitioner here in Prince George. Hello. And the wonderful Colette Freeman, who's an angel therapy practitioner and the owner of Enjoy Studio and Boutique here in Prince George. And we have some people already joining us. Hello, everyone. Yay, we're so happy to have you. So for those of you who are joining us live tonight, just a few things to point out. So at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a few different buttons. So one of those buttons is a Q&A button. So if you have a question that you would love for us to answer and for us to chat about, then please put that in the Q&A, because we love to do that. This is really organic, and this is a conversation. We weave through what we talk about with each other, but also what you bring to the table. And we really feel your energy. So thank you for being here. There's also a chat button. And so if you have any comments that you want to make, including Kimberly, thank you for loving my hair today. That's awesome, right? We just love having everybody connected here on this call.
Yes.
So Claire from Anmore is here. That's lovely too. So tonight we came
Deanna,
together.
I see you there, Deanna. Nice to see you.
So we're coming together to talk about reopening to a new way of being. And it seems to be pretty timely for those, especially of us in British Columbia, as we are entering phase 2 of reopening our world from the self-isolation cocoon. And I think this is an incredible opportunity for all of us to really be thinking mindfully and consciously and intentionally about how we want to re-enter the world. This is not a time for one size fits all. And really, I think we've thrown a lot of the rules out the window because we entered the unknown, and there's a huge opportunity for us to step into creation. So I want to start, perhaps Susan, you can start with a little bit about what you're contemplating for yourself right now as we're entering this re-entering phase, and what new way of being you are going to bring to this re-entering phase.
Well, thank you very much. I get to go first today. Nice to see that the video is actually working and I can actually speak this go around. Yay!
Oh, yay!
Yeah. So for me, I really believe it's an opportunity to move into my spirit versus my ego. And I've said before on the calls that ego is always separation, projection, and fear, and spirit is always unity, love, and healing. And it is about stepping into, my path, keep talking about to know thyself. And in every moment I get to choose. And even though the hustle and bustle is coming back in, and now, things could have the perception of going back to the old way. And I believe we're not ever going back to the old way because we're all different. We can't go back to the way it was because every one of us has changed in some form or in some way throughout this experience. And we talked about this yesterday, us three, when we talked about being the truth of who we are and choosing ourselves in the moment and what is true for me, and walking, and even rather than living out of obligation, which that has been working to please others and always in considerations of others. And I've really been stepping in to know thyself through the inner child. And then what is truth for me in the moment. So when someone asks me to do something, or when I'm being asked to go into anything, I ask, I just check in and say, is this true for me? Is this a truth, or is this a false ego or spirit? And then I more and more come from that place, and don't just say yes because out of obligation. It's not just a matter of saying yes, to really check in with myself. Is it something I want to do? And to honor in every moment, to really be living from that place. Really stepping into that a lot, and spending a lot of time continuing in the practice with inner child. I think I might have mentioned about the stuffy that I use as I know you guys know that. I use a stuffy that represents my little girl self, and I wake up in the morning and I tell her I love her and I hold her and I got her today and I'm going to make sure I listen to her today. And I check in at the end of the day. How did I do today? Some days really good, some days not so good. But I that's a practice I will continue, because I believe that is where the healing begins of all the wounds that show up and when I get triggered in the world.
I love that.
Thank you. And so you're
Yeah.
talking a lot about
Wow.
connecting to your personal truth as you think about re-entering in the way that you want to be. Colette, tell me a little bit about how you're sitting with that, like really mining your personal truth as you consider what the world looks like for you now.
Yeah. You know, I feel this, you know, I've said this before in the calls, what a gift this has been. And this time for me. And I just so want to hang on to the space that I found. And I really resonate with what you're saying, Susan, around the demands. You know, I'm really starting to contemplate that, and it's starting to show up. And probably for you, Christina, too, right? With our businesses that have been really quiet, the messages are coming, right? Are you open? When are you opening? And I immediately, I can feel that little bit of a charge, like, oh, I gotta, oh, right? Like someone needs, I better. And even that moment, like I feel it first, I have that reaction, I better get there to help. And then it's like, okay, but how do you want to do this? Like, take a moment. It's okay. Nobody's panicking. Everything's okay, right? It remind myself. So there's a bit of a charge with it. And I'm giving myself the space to pause. What do I want to do? But I really feel that, you know, that way that I've said yes, like you said, Susan, the way I've said yes to things before I even stopped to go, let me get back to you. Let me think about that for a minute and get back to you. So I think I need to have that pasted in sticky notes somewhere all over them. Let me get back to you, right? Yeah.
There's a theory that when someone asks you to do something, to wait 24 hours before you say, I'll get back to you in 24 hours.
Oh,
And so you give yourself that grace period to process and not to commit to anything for 24 hours.
Yeah. And you know, I thank you, because I'm not some things I can be like, yeah, that's a yes for sure. Yeah. And the other things I want to, you know, please the other person and what they want for sure. And so, but I love that. And I also, what made me think of when you said that was how much another sleep changes everything, right? Like in that 24 hours, I would get a chance to sleep again. Yeah. Right. And that reemergence as we rest, I don't know if people are really connected to that, how we reemerge with source when our bodies rest, but our souls obviously don't, right? Yeah. So we reemerge. And so many things get worked out there. So I love that you said that, Susan. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to write that down. 24 hours.
A hot tip.
So hot tip.
Right? Even if you don't have 24 hours, like I just really encourage my clients often to pause, right? If anybody asks you, say, you know what, I'm going to get back to you, just like you said, Colette, so that you have a time to sit with yourself and think, is this what's true for me? What does my heart want for me in this moment? And I think that's so important, but I'd love to hear from the people that are watching right now, like how many of you find that easy to do? Because I think there's an autopilot response that we have. And we either default to a no or to a yes, depending on how we're oriented, right?
That's true. Susan.
I wanted to just say, I wanted to just go to a quantum physics perspective, and we're just going to talk about energy being the polarity of positive and negative. And no judgment on positive or negative, but when we do things out of obligation or because what's required of us, it's actually a lower vibration experience, and it's not really giving what we had intended to do in the first place. Because the higher vibration, when you do something out of truth and out of a vibration of your own heart and out of experience, the energy of that is a much higher vibration versus, oh, my mom phoned and I got to go pick her up and take her to the store and I don't feel like it. That obligation, and then you end up the underlying resentment that goes along with that is a lower vibration, and it is sent out into this whole field, whether we realize it or not. It's added to the field. So the best thing one can do in every moment is choose their own truth, because that's the highest vibration of all.
Very cool.
Right, because there's a difference between saying, oh, I have to go to work today,
Yeah.
right? Versus I choose to go to work.
I have to go to work today.
I get to go.
That's what I'm
Different.
feeling today. Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what I feel now. I love every day. I love it.
Yeah. And have to and obligation is really a victim stance. There's no empowerment in that, right? The world is happening to me. I must do this thing.
Yeah.
Right. And when I go to a place of choice, there's an empowerment, and you're right. There's much higher vibration.
Yeah. Sure.
Fantastic.
And that goes back to when we talked about, I think in a couple of calls ago, when we talked about our power to choose in every moment, which is our free will. Comes to the solar plexus area, and it's our will. We get to choose how we show up in every moment. If we're going to choose ourselves versus the other, and it really is. I think the magic lies in choosing self from a higher place, of course, from spirit, not from ego. There's a separation there, and then with that comes sovereignty, which is the power and authority over self, and the power, because many of us have had our power taken away as young people, and we're told to do stuff out of obligation, especially women at a very young age, and then that's just ends up being conditioned upon us, and then we take on that conditioning and we give up our power and authority. But every time that we choose sovereignty over self, that's a win. That's a vibrational win, and then it gives an opportunity for new potentialities to unfold from that experience.
Can you maybe step into speaking a little bit about choosing our sovereignty from a place of truth and spirit versus from ego? Because I think that is an important place, because I could choose a lot of things for myself that maybe not in my highest good. So maybe you can really, let's differentiate this piece between higher self and ego.
So I think we've said in other calls, or I know amongst us three, that what's in the highest good for one is in the highest good for all. And when I walk the world these days, I look at it, spirit is always unity, love, and healing. It's coming back to wholeness when we speak of spirit. And then when I talk of ego, it's always projection, separation, and fear. And anything in projection is always judgment. There's always a value placed on it. And you're assessing yourself in some way or the other in some way against some valuation. So it could be the valuation that you're better than, or you're not as good as, or also in attachment. Whenever you're attached to anything, you're an ego. Attachment to anything, whether it's money, whether it's looks, whether it's anything of that source, it's an egoic thought, because spirit would never live in that place. And I often say to myself now, oh, my ego says. My ego says, I look in the mirror and I'll criticize myself because of my wrinkles or my belly. I get all my weight in my belly. That's just where I get my weight. And a lot of times I'll be looking in the mirror nudie, and right away my mind freaking goes to judgment about that part of my body. I'm like, what the hell? What the hell is that? No, I'm not. No. Then I go to pause. I'm choosing spirit in the moment. I love this body. Frick, I've lived 55 years. It walks me around every day. All this stuff, it does wonderful. So I transition it to the truth of what is. It's freaking perfect. Yes. And so it is. So let's just go back to the two thoughts I just had. It's clear, the wholeness, you can easily sense just even what I just said, which one was ego and which one was spirit. Did you guys get that? In my description of it, it's a visceral reaction of expansion in the heart or contraction in the heart. It's when you give yourself time to reflect upon that, it is actually quite obvious. But it's not when we've lived always in one way or another that we take the conditioning of the ego, because it's been so embedded in who we are. We sometimes don't even know the separation of it, that we're separate from that ego. We believe that is us. And then I describe it as cling wrap against the magnificence of who we are. And it's like, we think we're that, we think we're the cling wrap, but we're not. Take away the cling wrap and you're whole. There's not a damn thing you need to do. And so we have to be vigilant in recognizing the difference between spirit and ego. In every moment that we show up, whether we're judging another, whether we're judging ourselves, or in every circumstance, because it happens moment by moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's
You're
really
very
important.
welcome.
Yeah. Colette, how do you notice when ego is speaking, or your higher self is speaking to you? Like, how do you know? Can you tell?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I like that description. Love, there's a vibration to it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime that I feel constricted, anytime that I feel that comparison, right? And we do compare. I think that's part of how we roll in this world, right? That's how we describe things. That's how we communicate with each other, through comparison often. But comparison is a huge piece. And I want to go back, just even connect this to the conversation we were just having previous around taking that space or that break. That ego is often the very first voice, right? The first voice and the loudest voice.
Right.
And the voice that makes me say, answer that person right away, make a commitment right away, or I trust that judgment in the mirror right away, like you're saying, Susan, right? Trust that judgment, or about that person, or whatever. The pause, after the pause and drop to the heart, that voice is way different. It's softer, it breathes, there's no panic attached, it talks less, it doesn't chatter so much.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
it does.
There's a pause there.
Yeah. And I think what you're saying is really important here. So, for me, ego there's a feeling associated with that. That's often not a great feeling, right? Like, it doesn't feel good in my body. Maybe there's a constriction of it, because there is a lot about separation and competition, and I'm not good enough really steps in that. It really comes from that place of, oh, I need to do this in order to be good enough. And, what I'm hearing is that if you can pause long enough, then there's another voice that's coming in behind. And it's interesting to me that you point out the ego is the loudest voice. And I think that's probably because we are so conditioned by it. So why do you think that ego voice is so loud?
That's amazing. Yeah, because we're conditioned by it. I love that. Well, I think, and I'm, watching children, watching little people, watching animals, they just move the way they want to move, right? And we're trained to be safe in this world, right? And often we're trained by other people's fears. And that's happening even now. We're having some of that experience in the COVID, what it means to feel safe and be safe. And safety is the basic, that we were just talking about that today. That's so interesting that here it comes, the fight or flight we're discussing, a few of us, and what that looks like. And so knowing that, and any of you who've done any work around that fight or flight, or that automatic response, that feels very similar to that first voice, right? The one that wants to, right away take some action and fix it. Just fix it right away. And not to pause for, let's call it a God space or a love space, for that presence to come in, for that calm to come in, for us to, I love to really use the analogy to drop into your heart, because I think that's a physical thing that we can do when we just put our hand on our hearts and bring our attention there. A lot of calmness comes. And so to be able to just pay attention to what that looks like, and we have to give ourselves the permission for that space, because the demands are there. Not always is someone saying, hey, I'm going to give you some time with that. Don't answer right away. Right? Or, or whatever judgment's coming up, the reflection in the mirror isn't saying, hey.
Yeah.
So we have to say it. We have to decide. We have to take that moment. And I just want to speak to that, even that first part around, being able to invite in love to my conversation about what I want to do about something, so that I can really bring in and leave myself some space to invite in, what would love do here? What would
Mhm.
love ask of me? What would love ask of me? And you know, there might be still some recordings about what that means, because love can mean different things to different people,
Mhm.
right? It isn't always just the divine presence of unconditional love, right? We often have different meanings about what love means,
Mhm.
right?
So you're
Yeah.
saying that there's a part that voice is so loud in many ways because of how our brain is set up to go into self-protection first and to go into like what is danger, fight, or flight. And that part of how you can orient yourself to drop into your heart is to ask yourself a question in that space, right? What would be the most loving thing for me to do in this moment? What would love
Yeah.
do here? What would love require of me?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's such a lovely orientation. Go ahead.
Yeah. And just even thinking to, when Susan, when you were talking about, you know, really giving your authentic truth, and that what is good for you is good for the other. So that allows a little bit more space for that also, really to consider. So as I'm really doing something good for me, knowing that I'm going to just take care of myself right now, it will be the highest good for the other person, even if they're flailing a little bit, you know, in whatever way that looks like, right? Not happy with that. I know for sure I can look back now over my life enough times to see that when I've really been truthful to my truth and honest with myself about what I want, that it has worked out really well for the other person also. Doesn't look like it immediately every time, right? So I personally, I need to remember that. That's a bit for me, as the personality that I am, as the, you know, my whole work is around service and serving and uplifting. And, you know, I really have to tend to that first for me. And I can bypass that pretty quick, but only for a little bit. And then I start to get not feeling so good. Right? Resentment steps in.
And that's codepending. So when we do, I think we've said this in the other calls as well. So there's just a few, I think, repeats here. When we talked about when we're trying to do something for someone else and we give of ourselves, or we're always trying to please the other because we're scared to say no. We're scared to speak our truth because we're feared that we're not going to be loved if we do that. That's codepending. It's codepending. And we've all done it, every single one of us. And again, are living out of obligation because there's a fear that we're not going to get the love back.
Unless we do something, unless we be someone, right?
Something else.
Right.
And it's huge. And more as I'm moving and doing my own inner work, I have to tell you, I'm really moving into, it doesn't matter. I'm moving to a point, it does not matter if I get the biggest compliment in the world from somebody or the biggest, you know, downfall saying I'm the biggest bitch in the world. It does not matter because I'm really moving into being willing to be the only one that loves me, hears me, validates me. I know I'm worth it. That's within me. And so whether someone else says I am or not is irrespective of who I am. I'm only their reflection anyway. And vice versa. So they're just showing me what I believe in myself. And so they're all gifts, but it comes down to being willing to honor the truth of what we are on the inside. And it always starts within. If we want to change our experience, what's out there, we want a different experience to show up in a certain way. We got to go within. And we got to look at the way we are with ourselves and be honest. We talked about that, the other conversation about finally stepping in to be truthful with ourselves. What is it that I want? What is it that I want to show up in? How do I want to be in the world? How do I want to be even with this? This COVID was so exciting. We talked about the chrysalis and being in the cocoon and you know, stretching our wings. And yes, it's uncomfortable, being okay to be in the discomfort. And that's all I keep imagining, like the butterfly that's just getting ready to transform into something magnificent. But it's not comfortable, I'm sure, when you're stuck in that chrysalis and you're trying to fight and your wings aren't working yet and you're not sure, but I was a caterpillar. What do you mean? What's happening? I think I'm dying. I can't, I'm not going to make it through this. I can't, but we just keep stretching little by little, just keep stretching and keep going through it and crawling through. The next thing we know, look at the beautiful butterfly in your shirt, Colette. And we're just the next thing you know, we're just, oh my God, we're
Yeah.
fine. We're transmuting.
Yeah.
And you know, Susan, I think that you make a good point. Like, sort of as we're in that growth and that reemergence place, I think a lot of us experience anxiety. And Audra's asked a question. Would you say that
Yeah.
ego can also be a part of anxiety? So what are your thoughts on that?
Anytime I believe, so Colette talked about this, talking about making a point of how we're going to show up. So I know in the world, there's always a stimulus, then there's a response, but between the stimulus and response, I love what Colette said, choosing love or God, whatever you want to claim it, there is a space, there's a pause button. And just for before we actually do the response, the stimulus happens, we can just wait. The answers sit in the gap. And also the gap is the present moment. Just be present. Anxiety is always focused, and lots of other conditions are focused on the past. You're an ego if you're in the past. And if you're contemplating and focused on the future, you're in the ego. The present moment, just here right now, if you just stopped and everybody on the call just stopped and took a breath, and the breath always takes you to the present moment. Just take an in and out breath 2 times.
Let's do it.
Close your
Let's do
eyes
it.
and do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. And one more time. And one more, because they're telling me. There we go. In the present moment, you're not stuck in the noise of the ego, which Colette said is the loudest voice. It is a subtle, calm feeling. When you allow yourself to go there, there's an underlying peace in the moment.
Anxiety is, you know, the fear of the unknown. Like, what if, right? We start to practice all of these what ifs.
Yeah.
But the ego what ifs are all about, what if something bad happens? What if this person rejects me? What if they don't like me? What if I take 24 hours to respond? And
That's all future,
right?
that's
Whatever
all
that is.
future, right?
Sure,
That's all
right? So
future.
what
Yeah.
if I do this and they don't like me anymore? What if I do this and somehow X, Y, Z? And I think that, you know, what ifs from the conscious higher self is about possibility.
Oh, I love that.
So there's a
Yeah.
difference there. So I can tell when my anxiety is really coming from the ego, because it's playing a lot of worst case scenario what if games, right? That are aimed at telling me that I'm not good enough, I'm unlovable, and other people's opinion of me matters. And there's a different place here, right? In the present moment. When I step into that, when I do those 3 breaths, there is nothing wrong in this present moment. There is no what if. I'm just grounded into the sense of being. And hopefully I can touch into my own value and loveliness in this moment.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I
And then
love
also
that.
when you went, and when you went to the what if there, when you said that I'm going to say the lower vibration thoughts that came up, what if it doesn't work out? What if they don't like me? Do you believe that could be connected to the wounded child in the
Of
moment, and
course.
an opportunity to
course.
parent that child?
Mhm.
Because it's
The
all
past is always
perfect.
present. The past is always present, Susan, right? So all of that stuff comes from somewhere.
Yeah.
I
And
love
so
what
even and with Audra, with when the anxiety comes up, because it is a beautiful experience in the moment, because it's an opportunity to connect to self.
Yes.
In anxiety, and yes, it exhibits. And even when I was saying being in the chrysalis, and like you're fighting, and I know my sister sometimes has anxiety attacks, or they don't know what they are, and I'm going to call them panic attacks. And when she has them, she really feels in that moment she's going to have a heart attack and her life could end. Like it is real in the moment. And so it's coming back to the present breath, and then checking in with self. You can, you know, just to reparent, and also recognize the familiarity maybe of that experience. Because what you just said, Christina, it is always, the past is equaling the present moment. Your wounds follow you. They follow you until they keep giving you opportunities through experience until you liberate them. To give you an opportunity to be in it, just like in the chrysalis of the discomfort, and process it and see it from a higher mind so you can transcend that emotion.
Love that.
It's not easy when you're in it though. So I'm not minimizing anything, because I know the difficulty of having to transcend through difficulty. And there has been moments where I felt I am not going to get to the other side. And I just come back to the breath. I just breathe.
Okay.
Yeah. You wanted to add something here, Colette?
I do. I just really excited because when you talked about, and I've heard you talk about that before, Susan, your stuffy, right?
Yeah.
And would you call that your divine child?
That one is my wounded child.
Your
The divine
wounded
child. Yeah, the
Your
divine child
wounded
knows why I'm
child.
here. The wounded child.
So that, because I just, I can just see this part where that, because we talk a lot about loving the self. We talk a lot about going back and caring for that wounded child, but it can feel very, what is the word? You can't touch it.
Intangible.
What is that? Yeah, very intangible and abstract, right?
Yeah.
But you created something really wonderful here, where you've represent something, I'm sure it's beautiful, whatever it is that you can reflect to. I just think there's some gold there, and I think for some people who might want to do that, I want to try
it brings
that.
it to the physical. And
really
what I
does.
noticed for me, because same thing, I could not, to be honest with you, and I think bet you most of us on the call, there's also been a disassociation of things. So many of us have buried our trauma. Comes in many forms. You can stick to that word, it's a label, or experiences that were hard for the little child. And so what we do is we stuff it into the filing cabinet, we put it in its folder, we lock the door and never look at it. And then when it comes up in the present moment, we don't pay attention to it, and we become experts at doing.
Yes.
So we never have to be with the feeling. So I was an expert at that. And actually Christina, my beautiful friend there, pointed that out to me, and very subtly at first.
Nice.
But then I had to face it, that was in fact true. I wasn't looking at the feelings, but I could not connect to it. I could not connect. So my guides, thankfully, they said to do, the stuffy represents a little 4.5-year-old. And it's been wonderful. Oh my God, it's been wonderful. I'd see myself differently. And when I go into a wound, I just talk to her. And then in the daytime, when a wound's coming up and I do stuff, I recognize it's her in the moment when I'm going to an arrested development.
Very cool. And I could see where you could, you'd leave that on your bed, or where you come back to it, like it's your physical reminder.
Yes.
Right? Otherwise it's out of sight, out of mind. That's certainly for me, right? I'm just, besides all the feelings that I have that something's going on, right? Yeah. But that physical reminder, I really appreciate that. And thank you. For others.
It's really been hugely beneficial. And sometimes with my clients, I've had them take a picture when the wounds happen and actually paste it on the stuffy, so they can actually see themselves, the real scene. Like, take a photograph
of themselves.
Yeah, photograph of themselves at that age, or where they would have had difficulty or the trauma, and they actually tape it onto the head of the stuffy, so they get to look at themselves.
Wow.
Right.
So wow. And then you know how you are with that stuffy, and you're there. I'm you get to say those words. I'm there for you.
You're connecting with that part of yourself. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So we got another question here. So that is, how about control issues? Being uncomfortable with the unknown, things not in your control. I take that this is all ego stuff as well. So I want to start by just saying, often people with anxiety attempt to control their world so they don't feel the anxiety. So if my world is this big and I'm scared of this thing over here, I'm going to often control it. So I'm not going to go do that thing, and I'm not going to do this thing, and I'm going to be upset about this person behaving this way and this way. So what we do with anxiety is we often make our world smaller and smaller and smaller. So we feel we have a sense of control, so we never get triggered. So there is no unknown. The thing is that is actually anxiety producing as well, that need to keep it so small. And so there's a piece here, right? We think about, so the question is control issues about the ego? Likely, right? Because I'm essentially saying to myself, I cannot handle this. I won't be okay if this thing happens. And so being able, so, and that's all saying, like, that's all coming from fear and competition and a fear of what other people might think and will I be good enough? And so there is a place here when it comes to control, is the one thing that I can control that is never outside of myself are my thoughts and how much I love myself and how much I step into what do I want to experience in that moment. That is ultimate control. Because unknown is a fact. Unknown is a fact. And it's about being comfortable with uncertainty. It's about learning to trust myself that no matter what, I have always got my back. I've always, even the tough stuff, even when I've made mistakes and not had my back, eventually I was okay. I always figured it out. And that's one thing that really helps me to step into the expansiveness of possibility, is knowing I have actually been in places of unknown. I have had my heart broken. I have, you know, all of these other sorts of things that people would say, oh, don't do that. That's too scary. And what I have emerged from that is richer for the experience and knowing ultimately I trust me. This is not about when I need control, it's because I don't trust the outside world. And often most of us have had experiences that have brought up these issues of the world is not a safe place. Other people are not safe. That is not the place to lay my trust. I trust wholly here and in my connection to all that is. That is the place that I trust, knowing that it's all going to work out for me. I think you often say that, Colette, right? You affirm it is all working out for me. Yeah. And that is what resilience is, right? So resilience is our ability to get to be more comfortable with life, to go, hey, I've actually done that before. And what I love about this experience right now of self-isolation and all of the unknown is that all of us have stepped into the place of the unknown because we've never experienced a worldwide pandemic like this before. And so there is something here to learn for each and every one of you. And that is to trust that you are building resilience of stepping into the unknown because you've done this and you are okay. Even if you feel anxious, right? You are okay.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful affirmation. I am okay. There's nothing wrong. Everything is working out for me. Everything is working out for me. You know, I can just, as I say it, I don't know, do you guys feel that when you say it? Everything is.
Let's try that. Let's just, the I am is important. I know that. I've said that before. The I is the God in all of us. We're one. The I, the M is give me. I am okay. So I am okay. I am okay.
There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong.
Everything.
And knowing also, even with everything that's occurring, and I live by this truth too, is that the universe is always working for me. My perspective is very narrow in the whole scheme of the universe. I'm willing to admit where I sit in the whole scheme of things. And I'm seeing a very anti view of what's really going on. And so can you imagine if we went up to God's view and looked down at this universe? Not only the planets, I'm talking the whole universal perspective. It's a whole different ball game. And I'm willing to say that the universe is working for me. And knowing that as I step out, and it's proving that to me through evidence in every moment based on my thoughts. And doesn't create my own world.
That feels really good. And you know, and so we know, any of us who have listened to or followed Abraham, right? Reach for the higher, better feeling thought. Like that's it. That's it. In every moment, it's like there is no one blanket mantra. The best mantra is the one that's just a better feeling thought than you're having right now. Whatever that is, right? That's causing stress. But that we can move into and decide and choose for, rather than just allowing this life to come, because we're creators. We're creating this. So once we understand that, or even believe it a little, I mean, if you can believe it a little and start to play with it, just play. It doesn't have to be so serious. Let's just play with it a little bit. Let's just be, what if it was? Okay. So maybe it's not everything's always working out for me. We could just add, what if everything was working out for me? Maybe
Yeah,
that could be a
question.
what if.
Ponder the question, curiosity.
Ponder the question.
Curiosity.
That could be amazing.
What if the universe is working
Yeah.
out for me? What if that was
Yeah.
so
What
huge?
if? Wouldn't
What
that be
if?
wonderful? Do
Well,
I choose to believe that?
It allows us to step into a different perspective. So the same situation could be happening,
Mhm.
right? And if I step out of it and with curiosity,
Yes.
what if this is the universe? What if this is my world unfolding exactly as it should?
Yeah.
Right? What if this is for my highest good? What is
Yeah.
the learning here? What is that? And for me, it brings me right out of it. So especially in moments where I find myself triggered,
Mhm.
you know, and I go, okay, interesting. I wonder what this is all for. What if? Right? And it really just allows me, instead of being focused only on one perspective, to go, okay, well, what if I looked at it this way?
Yeah.
And it really opens my world. And maybe
Beautiful.
that's part of what you were saying earlier, Susan, about like God's perspective, right? Like he probably has multiple perspectives. He sees
And
everything.
I don't think, yeah. I think we looked at a sphere, that we're all spheres, and I'm over here on this side. We're all our own sphere, but or even one sphere, and I'm over here, and Colette's over here, and you're over here. It's just a different perspective. But I could look at multitude of perspectives in any given situation. Infinite
Yeah.
potentialities. And I love what you said just now, Christina, and remember how Daniel Goodenough said, interesting creation.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting creation.
When a trigger, whatever's happening, especially when we got the charge moments, sit back and go, interesting creation from a point of curiosity, not the trigger point, which is taking us into the wound. And I just wanted to touch on the lady who asked about the control issue.
Yes.
I can only speak from my experience on this. My need to control is because of events in my childhood where I had no control. And then I translated that in my adult reality because I did not trust in the unknown, because everything that was unknown caused pain. And so I was always living in fear of the unknown because I thought, oh my gosh, if that unknown equals something bad, unknown in my little mind, the little girl's mind, the unknown was something bad. And guess what? Since connecting to this beautiful little girl and the inner work and the angels, now bring on the unknown, because the unknown is where the magic happens. And when I say magic, I always reference different types of magic. So the MAJIK magic, that's the real magic. That's when you're taking, that's alchemist, changing lead into gold. And then we get to create from that place, and knowing we are creators, to what Colette said. We are creators. How do I know that? Because we're all here. We're all in the body. We've all created our reality, whether we take accountability for it or not, that's our choice. We say we may not be, but oh, frickin' rights we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We're creating it in every moment, and we can sit back and say, no, it's happening to me, or we can say it's happening for me. And then the next one is, I created this. How did I create this? I want something different. And then it's our thoughts that take us in. That's the foundation of all experience, is what you think. You create your reality in every moment by those thoughts in your head. It is your mind that has set up every creation that's happening in your moments.
Yeah.
And when we start to master that, we move from ego into spirit and look out world, because it gets really exciting.
And that's a beautiful practice, is to really monitor our thoughts. And I mean, they're just coming all, you know how many there are a day, right? All the time.
35,000, 40,000 thoughts
at
per
least,
day.
right?
Yeah, at least. Some say there's 60,000 thoughts
Unless
a day.
you're me. Yeah.
You might be 120,000, eh?
20. But it's really like, I know where I'm going because I know how I'm feeling, right? I can tell. And so when it's feeling constricted, I got to check what I've been thinking, or if I've been triggered, like Christina said, right? That something's come up and it's like, I wrote down what you said, right? Interesting creation, right? Or just to check, like, oh, that's so interesting. This is my experience right now. It must be for me. Here it is. This feeling's coming up. And then doing, you certainly use some of the tools, the journaling, the tapping, the EFT counseling, talking, all
Yeah,
the things,
talking,
right?
all the things, talking like the little person self. I love what you said about the emotions, like I think the feeling is the conduit. The feelings, if the storyline that happens in our experience, that's just narrative and a story. It's,
Nice.
and you know what? If you imagine that we're all sitting there in a play, and we can all, I bet you, all the participants on this call, we get repeats of the same experience. Different actors are wearing different coats, different backdrops, but the feeling's the same. The sensation on the body's the same. That's where that's where we get to step in and really see if we have the awareness to observe beyond that which appears in the moment. That is where we can transcend these old energies to create something new. And even with the coronavirus here, and we're now stepping into this new world, and there's discomfort coming up from people. What does this mean? Who am I? How can I maintain the truth of who I am as I go out there back in? There's discomfort for many of us in that feeling. There's emotions there that we have an opportunity to transcend and step into. And emotion, energy, and motion. It really is. That's a part of being human. We have emotion. All sentient beings, I believe, have emotion.
Yeah. And I think what's important here, Susan, sorry, Colette,
No, that's
is
good.
this piece around not avoiding the discomfort. So you had even said earlier, this piece around, often attached to the control issues are often attached to the childhood wound. And so we have a story that if I don't control this, I will experience pain.
Yeah.
And I think many of us, myself included, want to avoid feeling pain at all cost because there's some other narrative that comes in behind it. I won't survive it. I won't be okay. And really, like every time that I avoid feeling my discomfort, I avoid feeling my pain, I miss an opportunity to love myself.
Oh, nice. Nice.
And so there's a point there, right, where I can even drop into apologizing to myself. Apologizing to that little self, right? I am sorry for avoiding pain and discomfort and the opportunity to really love you. That's what it's about, right? So when I have, anxiety and control, those people who've asked questions, all of us have experienced that at some point,
Yes.
right? It's not about being perfect. For each one of those moments are conduits and opportunities for me to step into love, to step into choice of what I want to create for myself in that moment.
Absolutely.
So,
And, and back to perfect for a sec. Perfect doesn't mean all in the highest, being the best. It's being whole. The real definition of perfect is being whole and embracing both sides. And what if, back to these experiences of the negative experience, what if it's just a game board and it's all just contrast?
Of course it is.
It's something to bounce up against so you can experience and know what you get the one side, so you really have depth of understanding what the other side is.
And to identify what you prefer, right? Your preferences.
Yes.
Right? It's just preferences in this beautiful place that we can create from. And then it seems to me, it's been my experience that as I identify a preference and I'm moving towards that preference, I just get all these opportunities to clear all the things that get in the way of that, thinking that if I deserve it or don't deserve it, or I have something running, like you say, a narrative running around it. And that's all for me. That's all for me. I think there's amazing power. I don't think there's any mistake about the desires of our heart. That they're there, soul aligned, soul desires to take us through this perfect, right? Like because it arises, you can shove those down as many times as you want. They are going to pop back up. And because that's your path to being able to work through these pieces. And we came to do that because the other side is so great, right? When we arrive through it and we look back, read an old journal. Oh my gosh, I read some of my old journals and I'm like, wow, I was really believing that. I was super caught up in it seemed so real. And nothing happened. It never manifested. All the fears didn't happen. Interesting.
Yeah, we're great at creating a whole reality that doesn't even exist. And I often say to people, your imagination is that awesome. Imagine if you used it in a way to create your intentional life.
Yeah.
Like, why not step into using that imagination for creating what it is that you most want, what you most desire, what is most important to you?
Yeah. Use your powers for good, right?
Yes.
And it really is. Our thoughts do create a reality in every moment. So we can all go to the narrative of it, like we said, the negative of what's not going to happen. And so you're putting wherever you place your energy, wherever you place your attention, that's where your energy is going.
Right.
So most of us are going to the what if scenarios of the negative. And it's only from a physics perspective, it is only a positive and negative polarity. And you're going to get where you put your energy. So why wouldn't we take that aspect then? If we can equally focus on what's not working or why it's not going to work, why not take the energy and the awareness and move it to what could work? And focusing on the vibrational thoughts of your intention of what you want to create, and living from the highest truth of your spirit or your soul, because your soul knows why you're here.
And so in these moments then, because we are emerging back and we are, there's still a fear out there. I was saying to my sister earlier, we were confirming, Doug had said that Costco says now everybody has to wear a mask. In
Actually,
Costco.
they're recommending, they're not requiring.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay, that's pretty cool. So because I wondered, how is that going to arise, right, for people?
Yeah.
And so like even that moment, like choosing, if I want to go, if that was it's a recommendation, not a requirement, cool. But if it was a requirement, we were like, okay, so if I want something from Costco, I'm just gonna, I can have a whole story about that, or I could just go do what I need to do according to what Costco would like me to do.
And again,
So that I could buy that, thing of broccoli or whatever it is that I decide, right?
But you can still go in there and hold the higher vibrational thought in the moment that you are. Because one thing I'm learning, remember we talked, I think we talked earlier about compassion and recognizing. So someone that's embedded in fear in the moment around the coronavirus, you guys know my perspective on this whole scenario, but let's say someone's holding fear, it's really compassion. Compassion doesn't have judgment, ever. Compassion is just holding space for that individual to have their own experience with no attachment to it. And knowing and looking and also recognizing there would have been a time that I have been in that space. And I think, we're talking about I am that I am.
Yeah.
Knowing that there has been moments where I would have been in that exact circumstance, is a different storyline playing out in the moment. But
And to see that story as a good thing for you, right? That this is, isn't this lovely how they care? Or isn't this lovely how, right? As opposed to, this is so stupid. Everybody's, you know what I mean? Just a different vibe altogether. Yeah. And can I ask, Christina, I just going back, a thought came up, because you have just such, value with the work that you do. Like for you personally, when you hit one of those anxiety feelings, is there some certain processes or tools or something that you kind of make your kind of go to? Like something comes up, but you're still going to get on with your day. You have stuff going on, right? Like I'm just thinking, for me, I love tapping. I just love tapping. That is a huge one for me. And of course, my angels right away, I just give it to God. I give it to my angels. Like what I'm just imagining that you do some cool stuff. Or suggest to your clients, right? You're beautiful people who are also feeling that.
I think the number one way to do that is with the breath in the present moment. I just really feel like that, and especially you've talked about box breathing. And one of the things that works best for anxiety is to relax the vagus nerve. So that means the breath the out breath has to be twice as long as the in breath.
Okay, yeah.
And so often, so that would be like a count of 4 in and then a count of 8 out. And to do that, I have to purse my lips pretty small, otherwise I run out of breath. But it's really important. The out breath relaxes the vagus nerve. And so then I am left with conscious choice. So I'm no longer in that really heightened place. So that would be one of the biggest pieces where I would start.
Nice.
But
I mean, you
sometimes
can-
anxiety is about a lot of things. Sometimes it's just about the fact that I've got too much energy. And so sometimes it's even, for me, it's about shaking and flitting and like, you know, really letting all this extra energy out of my body. It's definitely about looking at my thoughts and seeing if I can change a thought and what are my thoughts right now? How can I shift that thought? And also the stuff that, you know, Susan, I do a lot of inner child work as well. So then it would be a matter of like, okay, so I sit with myself, like, what am I saying or doing to myself in this moment to create this feeling?
What am I saying to myself in this moment
To create this
to
feeling.
create this feeling?
Right. So I'm telling myself something. So and when I'm talking to myself, I'm usually talking to that little girl inside. So I'm telling her, right, the world is not safe, right? That she's not lovable, right? She's not enough, that she's being rejected. And I really step into that place and I apologize and I remind her the truth of who she is and that I am here with her and that it's going to be okay. I really bring in, right, the adult, right, to the
Just to add
reality
to
of
that,
it. Yeah.
and just to add to that,
beautiful.
when the physical sensation on the body is occurring, when we're under the anxiety or whatever the experience, that there's a physical charge on the body, to take one's hand and put it where the physical expression is happening on the body. So for example, the heart is palpitating excessively in the moment because the charge is coming up, and we don't know this always consciously, that there's an old wound manifesting itself in the present moment. And just by taking the act of putting it in that space where the energetic charge is, it calms. Sensation begins to dissipate. And then exactly what you said, Christina, about going further and having the conversation with that part of self.
Yeah.
And, you know, Colette, you're bringing this up in a really great way because you're talking about, you know, the anxiety that may come up from re-entering the world, especially when there's different restrictions on different places and, you know, this and that. And I think there's a real piece here sometimes about my anxiety coming up around belonging and fitting in to the world, right? And being part of, right? Like, oh, like there's, you know, there's a period of time, like everyone's like, oh, you know, can I, like, what happens if somebody sees us walking 6 feet apart, right? And like, are they going to shun me? Are they going to report me? Or like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of anxiety around this thing and I want to fit in. So I'm not going to do this thing because what if other people don't like it? And so I think there's a real important thing that we talked about in terms of belonging. And we talked about this yesterday, and I'm really brought back to what Brene Brown has said about belonging and versus fitting in, right? So fitting in is when I assess a situation and I alter or become who I think I need to be accepted, right? Which is not true belonging. That's fitting in. That's letting go of myself. That's not holding on to myself. That's stepping into a construct of what I think. And that often comes right when we're growing up. Our parents were always looking for, what do I need to do to be loved and to get the kind of love I need from you? Like, who do I need to become? So we've all been trained since we were little, right, to do this thing. And we do this in the outside world all the time, where true belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be fully who we are, so that we really step into, I am who I am, and I'm going to be accepted for who I am because I accept me. True belonging is with self. So when I think, because I think there's a lot of people right now at a choice point about what they want their world to look like. What if I choose to work part-time from home now? Or what if I choose to let go of this job? Or what if I choose to shift how my relationship looks? Because we've had this time for self-reflection. What if I want to spend more time in my creative pursuits? What will other people think if I'm not working 3 jobs anymore? Right? Like, you know, will I be as successful? All of these things. And these are all about fitting in and worrying about, you know, the whole construct. And this is really a moment, right? I have to hold on to myself and choose and to belong first and foremost to myself and my authenticity.
Right. And it's certainly, I'm really hearing that around opening up our store again, because we're called to do some protocols for sure. And so we're working on those now. And there is a balance there we're really considering, right? What are we required to do? Because, you know, we serve the public, and I guess the biggest feeling that we're having is that how can we just support everybody to feel as comfortable as they can feel when they come into enjoy. So rather than going, oh, well, we got to say this and we got to do signs and we got, you know, it's just like, you know what if that sign really helps people to feel at ease because they know what's expected, right? And I think we're still going to be who we are. We're still going to be the energy that we are. It's going to be really, really hard for me not to hug everybody. So, okay, clear, cancel, delete. It's going to be so easy for me to just find the right space and balance with people. But I think the ultimate piece, so I'm thinking about my own choices, my own what is true for me, and knowing that I still want to be respectful of other people and their space and vibe, right? And that there's some place in the middle of that, right? That is really okay for me and feels good for me and will work out for me and is awesome for me. And it will be really good for the other people as well. And I think there's a quantum piece to that too, right? Because as I think about that, as I request that, as I call in that, as I ask for the most benevolent outcome, as I set my intention for that is going to be how it is for enjoy. We're creating that. And that's what we want to create so that people still feel just as wonderful coming in. They're not feeling nervous. They got to go here. What do I got to do? We're going to, create it joy, because I want to feel that myself anyway. Right. I've been into other places and, you know, it's like you're kind of looking for the thing. I haven't really, I don't know if you guys have, but it's all been pretty good, right? For the places that I have gone. Nobody's been too grumpy.
And I think the thing is, this is about offering lots of grace, right? Like, I think as I'm re-entering, I'm really wanting to re-enter from a place of the 5D, like the expanded consciousness, the idea of unity and love and compassion and curiosity versus that 3D conditioned fear, scarcity, and competition. So, you know, if I, you know, see somebody else, you know, having a hard time with it, I'm going to choose love in that experience. Right? There's just compassion for that piece, right? And I'm really letting, like for me with my clients, like it's really an opportunity to let them choose. Some people are ready to come to in person, some people are not, and that is okay, right? You know, I think that we really have to make those choices. Some people have really discovered that, you know, the time that it takes for them to rush to appointments and different things like that was actually taking out some more time, right? That, you know, they could use in other ways. So really, you know, we don't have to rush back to whatever we thought we had before, right? Everything is a choice point here. Everything is negotiable. You know, I'm really suggesting to people right now, we have really, you know, the rules are out the window. So this is an opportunity for you to recreate your life in so many different ways. And all you can do is, you know, step into that piece of creation.
100%.
Yeah, that's a really good one around just our personal schedules, right? So those of us who've worked 5 days a week and have 2 days to fit everything in, right? Of what you know, I clean my house and I got to get my hair done and I got to, you know, whatever people are doing in those days, or planning the holiday. If I have time off, I got to go away. I got to see family, and those things, those thoughts have come up for me a lot, right? And just to stay present with that. Wouldn't it be nice? I've heard many people say, oh, this slower pace of no obligation, no obligation. So it really does speak to how obligated we feel in life and have felt. And this has given an opportunity to notice how obligated, you know, we without even questioning it, without even asking, do I need to do this? That's just what I do. So I'm going to do it. So definitely. And for me, myself, I want to bring that also into my work and to ask myself, you know, okay, that's the way I did it. And does that still fit for me? Right? Is that still okay for me?
What we said yesterday when we were speaking about what's true for me.
Yes, you brought that as a question to ask, and I really liked that, right? Is this true for me?
Is this true for me? And that's a starting point for people to start to recognize, as we said earlier, between the stimulus gap response. Stimulus happens. Is this true for me? Then response.
Gap. Yeah. So
Gap.
we'll practice the gap, right? Practice the gap. And I really appreciate the 24-hour, whatever that is, whatever I make it, I'll call it the 24-hour, whatever I make it, to really, to bring love into that, to bring spirit into that, really reveal to me what is for my highest good. And again, I know I've said this before, but I do, so again, Doug was out of town. So, and I know I share with you guys, I talk out loud to myself all the time. And I do that even when he's in the house, but it really helps me to hear myself and to say those things out loud, to bring in that, okay, so what is for my highest good here? Just to even ask that question, what is for my highest good? Because in the asking, the answer comes, right? In the seeking, you receive the answer. So as I say that, just show me what is for my highest good here, or reveal to me, or that always works. It's somewhere along the line. Either it's through usually it's a feeling for me, something shifts, some more information comes. You don't always have all the information, right? And that's a little trick to not saying yes right away, because what you think people are asking for,
Okay.
isn't always what people, right? What you think they're asking for isn't always what they're asking for. Get clarity, right? Get clarity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. I think that there's many things that if I actually pause right now to reflect, and I want to encourage all the people that are watching this to take some moment to reflect on what are some of the things that you experienced that you were brand new to you that you might want to integrate moving forward. Right. So when I think about, and I've talked to a lot of people, one of the things that I really stepped into was doing way more home cooking and really enjoying the creativity, right, of spending more time cooking. And, so that's been a real gift. And I know other people have, and I'd love to hear if anybody wants to join on chat, more walks, right? Just more getting out into nature when I could. But one of the biggest pieces for me was I had a birthday during self-isolation and COVID this year. And I had planned a large event with lots of people, and that did not happen. And that would have been lovely. And instead, Susan had arranged a receiving day. So essentially throughout my day for over 8 hours, every hour on the hour, somebody either came and dropped something off, brought lots of baked goods came, they were delicious. I had someone come and drum and sing me a song. I had lots of phone calls. And what I found instead was that I had these really specific, pointed, heartfelt, connected moments with each person that I don't often get when I have these large things. And it suddenly has made me realize, and even people who were on the giving end were saying, I want to do this, even after all this is passed. This is actually really cool. And so I realized how important that one-on-one connection was for me.
Beautiful.
Right. And so I think there's a lot of things that, that I never would have stepped into potentially without this happening, and have now discovered that I really, really love and enjoy.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. When you say that, it's interesting, because what came up when you were speaking there, authentic connection.
Authentic connection. Yes.
Because many of us have connected in passing, or you ask questions, but you're not really listening. Like the one that yesterday came up actually in the training I was in. People will ask, how are you? And the facilitator gave us an example when she went to a party, she was going to a party, and the host said, how are you? And she goes, oh, I'm sorry for running late. She said, it took me a little longer to kill my grandmother than I thought. And then she left. But the woman didn't even say anything. And in she went. She wanted to test the theory if that person was listening. She went into the party. It wasn't until 3 days later, the woman phones her and says, did you say what I think you said when you entered in the door, that it took you a little longer to kill to your grandmother than you thought.
Oh my
3 days to get
God.
it.
Right. Oh my
People
gosh.
don't listen. They say to, how are you?
No.
But they're not really listening.
Yeah.
They're not connecting.
Well, and
I
that
laugh
in
like-
that group
yeah.
dynamic, it's your senses are going to right? You're looking, is everybody okay? And yeah, you're very.
But even
very
one-on-one,
discerning.
some people will ask you, how are you today? But they're not really interested in the answer. Their minds are going somewhere else. So when you're saying about that, Christine, it's the authentic connection, that you're really connected one-to-one. They're telling me, sorry, the guys are just telling me to talk about the 3D and the 5D. I just want to go back there. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So many people are having questions on what the difference is between the 3D and the 5D. And of course, there's two different analogies or two different experiences of that. One is the physics experience, and then one is the spiritual experience. And the physics experience in the 3D dimension, we have length, width, and depth. That's the expression of the 5D. The 3 dimensions, sorry. And then as we move into, it's just another perspective gets added. And there's a different geometric shape that explains that from a physics perspective. On the spiritual perspective of the 3D consciousness, here we are in space and time in this experience. And when we move into the 5th dimension consciousness, you go beyond space and time, and it's just a wider perspective. And it's existing in unity consciousness, of which Christina just said. And you no longer necessarily, you start to move out of the experience of duality. And good and bad and right and wrong. And if you imagined, I believe this is, I'm only speaking from my own perspective, that all dimensions are happening at the same time. And it's the breath in and the breath out. And we only happen to be aware of the dimension that we're in consciously, which happens to be the 3rd D. And I believe humanity is moving into this new vibration, a higher vibration of experiencing the world. And there's individuals, we've hit the tipping point as humanity in a vibrational perspective to be at the baseline of the 5D. And then everybody has their own expression or experience to move through and move up to that vibration now. And so many of us are experiencing lower vibration experiences that are coming to the surface, more agitation, more anger, getting more triggered by others. And so what's happening is the transmutation of those old energies have to be released in order to move our own individual vibration to a higher perspective. And so just imagine, just like I said, back to the ant's perspective, if I'm down on the ground from an ant, you're not seeing a very wide point of view. And then as we go higher and we take it, I'm going to see it from a dog's point of view. And then I'm going to go up and now I'm at a human's point of view. And then there's the angelic point of view and then God's view. You know, obviously there's big depth in between each one of those. So the 5th dimension now for each of us, it's just an opportunity to see it from a higher perspective. You get a wider perspective. You see the unity of it all. You see the game board of duality. You see that everything is really working for us, not to us. And we get to realize that we are the creators of our own experiences with our thoughts. In the 3D reality, we're busy being the actors. We're in the actor's role. And then as you move in more into the 5D, you get to see it from sort of what's intended to serve from a soul's perspective. They just wanted me to
That was awesome.
that
Awesome.
illustration.
Really good description.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, when
Thank
I
you.
step into, maybe if I want to step into that wider perspective, my wider perspective for me is around the fact that we are all aspects of the same consciousness. We're all connected in that way. And that I see that each one of us is a unique expression so that we can have our own individual perspective because we are all consciousness informing itself. So it's almost like, you know, we're going to have this thing happen and we're going to see how 7 billion people react in different ways and have different experiences so that we can figure out all the different ways that happens. And when I can do that, I step out of being right. I step out of needing to know everything. Because I really know that each one of us is going to have our unique perspective on it and it's all okay.
Nice.
And in fact, I want to step in with curiosity in that place because I often see people get to a place of needing, you know, in this whole thing, how do I do this? It needs to be done the right way. What is the right way? Essentially.
It's all right. It's
all
it's
right.
all in my
Yeah,
it is
exactly.
all of it is it's just experience.
Right, because what's right for me and what's right in you and you, like that's are all going to be different. But I think people often, I see people having sort of butting heads from, I guess, that ego control place and that fear place about it's got to look one certain way. And I think that that really defeats the whole purpose of why I'm here. I'm here to explore. I'm here to create. I'm here to be curious and to step into love and the unknown at every moment.
Yeah, 100, absolutely. And that's what and letting go of attachment to our own perspectives. Really, if I looked at it as a sphere and we're all just different on the outside of the sphere and we're all just little points on the sphere with consciousness informing itself, and consciousness is the center of the sphere, it's just a different point of view. You look at the sphere, there's no wrong or right way. I don't care how dark one could perceive it to be or how light one could perceive it to be. It's just experience. It's giving an opportunity to see things from a different point of view. The interesting thing is, man, do we all hold on to our perspectives?
Yeah.
And we fight for those perspectives and we fight. And I always say, anytime you argue for any type of limitation, you know you're an ego. I can't do that. That will never work. You know, you need to see it this way. And I used to be that. Trust me, I used to be that way. Very much so. I would keep arguing till the death from my perspective. I wanted to be right on something, but I laugh my ass off now because it's just a point of view, and there's many points of view.
Nice.
Well, when we argue for our limitations, we can't step into reality and creation, or sorry, into possibility and creation.
Yeah.
There's nothing new. All we're doing is rehearsing our past if we stay in that place of arguing for our limitations.
Yes.
And we're masters of, we've in humanity, we are all freaking masters of limitation. We've done that well. We get an A+++ for how well we've capitalized on that. We really did well. Now let's rise up and claim our magnificence and be the master of unlimitation. And
again,
that.
Sorry, another moment I would just love for each person on this call to really think about, right? Like what in what ways do you argue for your own limitations? Because what we are not conscious of, we can't do anything about. So start, take these moments to reflect, right? On, how is it that I argue for my own limitations?
There's one that I see that every one of us do. Every single human being does this. And I've noticed, I was telling Christina today, this has come so clear in my awareness. And I'm also noticing it in self, so therefore I'm noticing in others. So people will say a statement that's of a high vibration. I want to manifest my new car, for example. Then they say, but I don't know where I'm going to get the money, for example. So the minute you say but, it's just negated the higher vibration energy. And it's put you back into the lower vibration. So the universe will keep you in the lower vibration. So I would encourage the same thing when you say sorry. Canadians, we are conditioned to that sorry word. Sorry is the same. Every time we say sorry for anything, we're arguing with reality. We're arguing because how do you know it was for you? Because that's what happened in that moment. So if you end up showing up late for an appointment, there's no need to apologize because it was supposed to go down that way. Because how do you know that? Because that's how it went down. And so for the people on the call, I would really encourage them to really become vigilant in the language of the word of but, shoulda, woulda, coulda, sorry, being apologizing for anything. Because every time that you do that, it is bringing you into that lower vibration and it's negating the experience of what you're trying to create with the first part of your language. And the word is so important in terms of vibration. I cannot emphasize that enough. The
Beautiful.
Word.
Yes.
And
The word.
And the energy. So all we are is light, which is energy, and vibration, which is sound. We have sacred geometry, and our sacred geometry happens to be expressed as a body in this incarnation. And we have chakras or energy wheels that hold us together. And then we have the word, which brings things into creation in every moment. And also our thoughts is another form of vibration, by the way. It's going into the field, and energy cannot be created or destroyed, can only be transformed. So do you want to put into the field the higher vibration energy for your creation, or do you want to put in the lower vibration energy for your creation?
And that's the piece where we're always identifying what we think is reality, right? Well, I'm just saying how it is. I'm just saying what is, right?
Being realistic.
Being realistic. Thank
Yeah.
you, Christina. Being real. I'm just being realistic. This is what it is.
Yeah,
This is,
I know.
you know, and it's like, yeah, but what it is only a culmination of what we've been thinking thus far.
For sure.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's an
Now-
accumulation. It's accumulation of you. You've created the illusion by your thoughts. So everything you've created up until now is based on the thoughts that you've been thinking. And if you want to create a new personal reality, you got to change the personality of the thoughts that you've been thinking.
Yeah, I love that. The other one
Yeah.
that came up when you were talking is, and that's come up for me today, it was pretty black and white. I don't know. I don't know. And I was like, stop saying that. Right? I'll know. I know when I know. You know what? It's unfolding for me.
Yeah.
But
it's okay. Do you think?
I have to say, I don't, because that can be a restrict, depending on the stress, right? Where you feel it in your body. That can be I don't know what to do, right?
Okay.
I don't know. And it's like, do I need to know? And now and just so it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And what if I don't know?
It will be revealed.
Yeah.
It'll be revealed. Right?
Yeah.
It'll be revealed.
Yeah.
And I really resonate with you. I'm sorry, because I've done a lot of that and I still do sometimes, but I'm really working at because it'll be if I'm delayed to respond, that's my biggest one, right? Because as I'm learning to take more space for God's space, and I'm feeling that person's waiting on my response, thank you for your patience.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because it's so, it feels completely different, doesn't it? Like even
you
when
can
I
feel
type
the
it out.
energy of it. Yeah,
Yes.
the energy is complete rather than I'm sorry. The minute you say I'm sorry, you can see. And also back to that, if we believe everything's happening for us, why are we apologizing for it?
Yeah.
Why are we apologizing for what is?
Yeah.
Like when I look at that logically now, or from my space of logic, why am I saying sorry for what is? Because it was supposed to go down that way. There's no need to say sorry for reality.
Is there ever a time though, Susan, where you think that like an apology would be appropriate?
The one time that I say yes is the Ho'oponopono prayer, because it's embedded in that. But when you're really saying sorry for anything in that regard, the universe, in any experience that's happening, it is always a mirror of something within self. So when we offer the Ho'oponopono prayer to another, we're actually taking responsibility for our actions and what we've created in that moment. And so the prayer, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me and thank you. And so let's say I got mad at you for something and we've never had that ever. So I love you. By the way, everybody, I'm madly in love with Christina. I love her. And Colette, of course. Christina, the first time I met her, I knew as soon as I met her, I have known her in different lives. Like as soon as I met her, I knew. Like it was just an instant. And Colette was the same when I met. So both of them I love deeply.
Amazing.
So if I was to do that, recognizing that it's showing up for me, I created this. Again, the 3 truths that I live by, I created this. And so the prayer would be that, because I'm really saying sorry to self for my creation. So in that moment, it is a recognition that I created this moment for the liberation of my experience to go to a higher vibration. So then it is worthy of sorry to self, to creator, for this creation.
I think maybe a lot of people that would have a hard time like not thinking that there might be moments, right? And I've heard it before said that like, unless I absolutely know that I will never do that again, there's no point to saying sorry, right? Like, and I think that's really difficult to do because we're all actors playing roles in each other's lives in some way. We're all creations for each other. And so I do believe that everything's happening for a reason. But I also think a lot about, a lot of programs would suggest we make amends for things, right? When people, commit crimes and like apologizing to the family. Like, I mean, there's just so many things there that, I mean, we're probably not going to have time to dive into today. But
Can I just add one thing? Just one thing, that there's a difference between sorry and atonement.
Okay.
Very good.
Big difference.
Okay. Perfect.
Atoning for something to undo or to make right. I'm going to use the word atone, is to make right.
Perfect.
And that's what the Ho'oponopono prayer does. It is right relationship with whatever. And the First Nations talk about that a lot. It's right relationship with self, with other, with nature, with environment. So sorry is a lower vibe. Even if you went into your own experience right now, both of you, and you went into your heart, and the audience can do that as well. And you just go and you feel through breath, and then you say, I'm sorry. You will feel the vibration of it is a lower vibration. Say, I'm sorry. And then if we go back into making right or to atone for something, it is all the creation of God. I cannot say that, or whatever we call the label. The God is not the vibration, the word of God, but the vibration of what creator really is. It is all an expression, and it is all happening. We never have to be sorry for the expression of creation. And we live in a duality game of positive and negative polarity. So both are always playing out, and it is working in balance. And we would never be asked to show up and say and wish something didn't happen. That is an ego thought. That is an ego when we recognize it in that. And I know this is a really hard one to grasp, because many people have suffered many travesties in their experience. And I know in my own world of things that I've experienced has been extremely hard. But now with a higher level of awareness, I understand the balance of this wheel that's playing out in the reality of why both sides have to play out. And there is never a need to apologize for that. To atone is different.
That's big. That's
right.
big. That's really big. And in the version of when we're talking about our feelings, and that person didn't treat me well, right? Either they were unkind, or they hurt my feelings. That's hurt my, and it's I think when we look, every moment we look deeper, and it's really rare that someone is coming at you going, oh, I'm gonna hurt you. That's not really what they're doing. Right. No. In that moment when I have hurt you, you feel hurt by what I've said. One of us or both of us have just forgotten who we are. Right. In a moment, just kind of forgotten. And, even if someone is really saying something to me about my character, I know that they're just, it really is about, it's a personality, conversation. It's not a heart, it's not a soul conversation. It's, I think that for, the ability to remember who we truly are, and to remember who the other person truly is. And they're just working their, ego self, all of our conditioning to feel better about themselves. We're all just trying to feel good. Right. And sometimes through those other pieces. So I love what you're saying, Susan, because you're taking it to another level that is really opening up another vibration for us, that in fact, we don't maybe, there's a lot of playing that we've done within all of those places to make it all okay. And you're taking it even to another level where there was never anything wrong. And what if we could actually really own that and see that? Yes, that's a big one.
It is, and I know in my own journey, I've seen many different perspectives, and back to the sphere. There's always a higher perspective. There is always a higher truth. The truth I hold in the moment is my truth. There's always a higher truth, no matter which perspective. There's a God's truth. There's a creator's truth, and that takes a very wide perspective to see it.
Wow.
You said one thing, Colette, about the
short. We're almost out of time.
Yeah, sorry. When we're in a wound, when we take anything personal with anybody, it's we're in our own wound.
Yeah.
It's got,
We're in our
and
own
Don
wound,
Miguel
yeah.
Ruiz talks about that, not to
Yeah.
take things personal, but we know
Mhm.
in the minute that we're being charged,
Yeah.
any charge in our own field with anybody, it's our stuff.
Mhm.
Because if somebody said something and you didn't have any experience at all and there was no charge, then you know it's not yours.
Yes.
The minute
That's
you
right.
have a charge for it, it belongs to you.
It's a gift. It's a gift. There's the place to look, right?
Totally,
There's the place.
totally,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like
there's the place. Yes.
we're all like, I'm just like, ooh, I think this is potentially what we could talk about almost next time.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know, really, because I think there's a place here. We've talked about things like codependency and telling the truth and owning our wounds and things like that. And I really think that that would be a great place for us to start next time. So
Beautiful.
just so everybody knows, we're going to be coming back together, the three of us, the Divine Sisters of the Heart of Self-Mastery on June.
I love that.
So take a look in your inbox for the invite there, or join us on Facebook. I also have another conversations with Christina, the practice of conscious creativity, coming up next Sunday night on the 31st.
That sounds exciting. That one is exciting because
Very
most of us
cool.
don't take time to play and create. Oh my
It's
God.
true, right? So
I
I'm going to
love
be
that.
joined by three fabulous artists who are all just stepping into divine creation, looking at life as a real creative endeavor. We've talked a lot about creation tonight and how important that is. And really the idea that creativity is our unique portal to self-awareness. And
I love that.
And so Natasha's going to be talking about the self-portrait and how that really helps us to learn more about ourselves. So I'm actually really excited. So that's 7 o'clock.
Yes.
Yeah, next Sunday night. So again, thank you all of you for joining in tonight. We look forward to seeing you on the 31st or June 15th. Thank you so much to Susan Flueck and to Colette Freeman for joining us, and all of you for adding in tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your questions are absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
And I want to say thank you
you
to all the participants and also to you for hosting, because you always do a magnificent job. And to Colette as well for all of us sharing our perspectives and to contribute to move things forward.
Yes. Thank you for having us, Christina. It was beautiful.
Awesome.
Thank you. Really beautiful.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
Susan. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.